Hello, thank you very much for having me. My name is Professor Bruce Hearn. I'm a full professor in governance at the Southampton Business School. My background is that I did 12 years in professional industry, investment banking industry in London. Then I came into academia and I spent the last 14 years in academia working between some quite good institutions worldwide. So King's College London, University of Sussex, University of Southampton, and also internationally. I worked in a wide variety of countries such as Afghanistan, Finland, Switzerland, France, and West Africa as well. So I've got quite a lot of international exposure, and I've got the industry exposure as well, practitioner industry exposure. Plus, I've been working in UK academia with the teaching, professional teaching, and research. My field is corporate governance. So my field is actually governance in its whole. So institutional governance as well as corporate governance. But corporate governance is a relatively new field or discipline, and I sit within the Department of Accounting. But the work that I do, both in terms of teaching and also particularly research, spans or transcends a number of distinct subject areas. So management, international business, entrepreneurship, but most importantly corporate finance, and accounting. And so governance is kind of spans or transcends all these distinctive subject areas and disciplines. My interest in field is entirely practical, and it's a combination of both coming from a practitioner background for 12 years in inherently practical environment in banking and financial markets in London, which is totally practitioner orientated and very inherently pragmatic and practical. But also I have a real love of international contexts and people as well. And ultimately, its heart, particularly corporate governance, but also finance and accounting and entrepreneurial finance, is all about people. It's all about how people access finance, what are the terms and conditions of contracts about finance, how can they use finance practically, and how can they actually utilise the different aspects and tools of corporate governance in order to advance their business. And so very much is a practical, applied approach to entrepreneurial finance and to corporate governance, and it's of practitioner benefit. It's rooted in practitioner experience, but equally has the added benefits of having all the research-led pedagogic approaches and the benefits of my quite wide international teaching experience as well. In terms of international entrepreneurial finance, this course is very much designed to stimulate students' interests, research interests, and interests in particularly in the entrepreneurship domain, and specifically within those students who want to have a much greater insight into what it is in practice to be an entrepreneur. And critically, with any idea that you've got in terms of a product, initial idea, is how to expand the business, how to launch your new product, ultimately where the finance and resources are going to come from in order to facilitate that product launch and facilitate the growth of a business. So with that in mind, it's very important for students to be able to have a firm grounding in terms of the different types of early stage financing, such as business angels, family obviously, and friends, but particularly after that's been exhausted by most small scale businesses, business angels, and what a business angel is, how angel financing is obtained. In many ways, it's almost like a mix and match sort of dating website as such, in terms of actually matching entrepreneur business plans with the actual experience of seasoned angel investors. And so actually many chambers of commerce and local councils across the UK and Ireland actually maintain lists of successful business angels who can provide support to local entrepreneurs. So business angels are very early stage. The next stage will be considering venture capital and private equity. So venture capital and private equity are typically agencies or formulated into bespoke, formalised organisations or companies, if you like, who are dedicated in providing financing structure. And this typically takes the form of formal contracts, and companies can actually benefit from these kind of contracts. But at the same time, in benefiting from these contracts, which is a competitive bidding process and screening process, they also are very much tied into quite exacting and demanding performance. So the course will actually go through what types of performance expectations there are by more formalised venture capital and private equity, how this works, how they enforce their financial contracts, things like stage financing, for example. They're not going to give the entrepreneur the whole tranche of financing, but they'll actually adopt different steps or different stages. So if you perform well at the first stage, then you're going to get access to the second stage, and perform well then you get access to the third stage, and so forth. So students will go through this decision criteria at each stage, and they will get a much deeper understanding of the whole business cycle evolution of the entrepreneurial firm, and at each stage of that evolution, what type of financing is best suited to the environment of the firm and the firm's structure at that stage, and the pressures the firm is facing in its markets. And then we culminate in this course by considering the debut of the firm, the first listing of the firm or initial public offering on a stock exchange. So in that sense, say when firms, when this entrepreneurial evolutionary life cycle of a firm culminates in a debut or first listing, initial public offering on, say, the London Stock Exchange, which is usually accompanied by a huge fanfare and considerable media publicity. So we actually look at entrepreneurial firms, each stage of the life cycle, and what the most effective source of finance is at each of these very different early stages in the firm's development. And this is quite different from the usual standard textbook finance, which is really an all size fits all kind of approach to corporate financing. And you have certain particular formulas and so forth. This is actually really quite different. So this is very much a more mix and match, and very much a tiered approach in terms of what is specifically useful in terms of financing, what financing options for the entrepreneurial firm. So international entrepreneurial finance is taught across 3 weeks with 5 sessions per week, and again, a backbone of no more than about 15 to 20 minute mini lectures, which introduce key elements or key learning or theoretical techniques associated with a topic. And this is then reinforced with a mixture of short case studies, multiple choice questions, true, false, very short questions. We call them quick bite questions to keep students on the toes. But also, very importantly, some computer exercises and some lab exercises, so basic Excel. So students should expect to develop a much greater enhanced understanding of entrepreneurial finance theoretical techniques and what this means in practice. But also, students would expect at the end of 3 weeks to gain some very, very useful, incredibly valuable and useful basic skills in terms of Excel spreadsheets, Excel formulas, valuation, and the basic terms and conditions of entrepreneurial finance provision, either by business angels or venture capitalists and private equity, and contract structure, but again expressed in Excel, and Excel formulas. So this is particularly useful for pretty much everything. It has huge impact for students' lives in terms of their further careers, if that be in research and academia. Then Excel forms the backbone of dissertations, for example, and many exercises as you will go all the way through Masters, MBA, PhD. But also Excel is the critical backbone of all companies, large, small, wherever you are. Go get a job in a company in Shanghai, in Pudong, or go get a job in Singapore, or go get a job in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, or here in, say, for example, London, or Dublin, or New York. And all companies are going to be large, small. The key backbone apparatus that they use to do with finances and so forth, and accounts, and in fact most corporate activity is based on Excel. So this actually provides a very, very strong backbone or bedrock for students in terms of skills, useful critical skills that they'll be able to use transferably in their future careers. So it's a mixture: lectures for key material, short answer sessions, mini case studies that will be expected to be students can work through in groups, but also there'll be some computer lab classes and based on Excel.